Tessadro, who I see has switched his camera.
Hello.
Happy to have you with us. And sorry you had to wait a long time. You're the last man standing before the lunch break. But I think your work has already been nicely promoted, for instance, by the colleagues from Ameria Bank, who had even your little logo in there in the presentation. So you're basically the verifier. I'm going to say it like this now, but I'll let you explain a bit more what you do and how you do it. The floor is yours.
Okay, fantastic. First of all, thank you very much for waiting for me. I'm sure that after a lot of speaks and talks, people will actually be looking for lunch. So I'll be trying to be engaging, energetic, and not to bore you. And especially because if you're already in this panel, there was Sean, Alexandra, and other very valuable contributor to this conversation. You know already what a second party opinion provider is. I think that Michaela verifier is let's say a label that describes what we're doing. And without like spending too much time on like what is like a Sustainalytics, because I don't want to promote the company, but I want to promote like the roles that second party opinion providers can give to the markets in general, and can give to a specific region like Central Asia and Kazakhstan. And I think that the key words that players in the market should have in mind, it's really the one of a gatekeeper. The second party opinion provider is a role that was born with the very inception of second party opinion. Second party opinion are this verification which says that a framework is on aligned with some international standards. Now that there have been a proliferation of standards, because there have been the green social bond standards, then European Union taxonomy in other parts in the world, because I don't want to be too Eurocentric. They are doing big efforts on creating a regional taxonomy. And so there will be like verification and verifiers also for those standards. But in this market circumstance, it was felt there was need about a reliable player who could say what is sustainable and what is not just what is aligned and what is not. A lot of time there is also like a political sort of like a game and decision. And ESG rating agency or like sustainability consultants took this all about second party opinion provider. And when I'm saying that we are the gatekeeper in the market, is because we have throughout the years and throughout our interactions, a lot of conversation about what can be considered eligible for a sustainable transaction and what is not. What can be considered a good fit for a transition label. What are the KPIs which can be considered ambitious for a sustainability linked financing? And sustainability, at least from the environmental and social perspective, is that broad and all-encompassing concept that we are still needed. And I think it's, I always like to mention, even if like maybe commercial is not the best thing to say to the clients, but for me it's always like stunning. It amazes me how second party opinion are not mandatory, but still like over 90% of the let's say sustainability transaction that takes place worldwide in the market has always some sort of like verification, either a second party opinion, verification against climate bond initiative standards, but they have something. Now, deep diving a bit of what is interesting like for the players in Central Asia. I think that what I'm seeing in Central Asia is what I've been seeing when I started like working in this market. And I was I'm Italian. I was working. I'm glad that Italy was mentioned a lot. We recruited the bed previously by Alexander. And what I've been seeing like back then, it was the Southern European, Turkey, Middle East market coming up. They were like a sort of the second wave of markets approaching this kind of instrument. And you could see that as a matter of fact, the first players in the market, like approaching a second-party opinion providers and this kind of exercises, were like the biggest company, the public company, the company which has already like they were like prone to have green and sustainability assets. For instance, utilities company. Another big category of players which were first movers in approaching these instruments were a financial institution, because that is where it happens, all the innovation for this kind of instrument. Of course, like with on the sides, organization like CBI, IGMA, and etc. And this is what I'm seeing as well. I'm seeing as well in some market. For instance, I would like to mention a wonderful case that came up in Ukraine end of last year, where Ukrenergo worked with us on a hybrid framework. So it's a utility, of course, but they work on a very, I would say, advanced framework, including both the use of proceeds and the sustainability link part. And this is an example of a market which is not maybe even the second wave, maybe it's the third wave, because just few players there move, and until up very recently, but they have been looking what was happening at the frontier markets, and so they came up with a very advanced framework, including both parts, and really enhancing the possibility of green investment of like a big player in the market. So my single most important advice to players in Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and the Caucasus, it's really looking at what players in the same industry but in other markets have been doing, and discussing with the second-party opinion providers, not necessarily, I hope with us, but not necessarily with us, on how this projects that took place in other countries, in other geographies, could be translated and taking into consideration the local contexts, because this is like it's actually something very important, and that the second party opinion provider actively do. Michaela, I don't know if like you want to proceed with question and etc. I try to keep it short because I know that I'm coming at last, but tell me how you want to best proceed.
Yes, excellent. I actually do have a question, since you already cheekily promoted your services here. You know, it's all about the question of money in the end as well. So, and do you think your services would also be affordable in the countries we're talking about? Because of course, one of the questions also is for people to start issuing green bonds is, okay, how much, I mean, the regulatory tape, but how much costs are involved. I know you already work with Ameria Bank, so that's a good sign. I'm not going to say banks have money, because that would be a bit of a silly comment to make. But if you look at other actors in the market, do you think indeed this is something also sustainable for them in a world, that the external cost of this second party verification, be it by you or a similar provider?
It's a very legit question and an extremely important question. Money is like the mechanism that we use to move around things, right? And to be honest, like I don't want also to bore people to on a point that for me is merely commercial. Like for Sustainalytics, pricing and etc. shouldn't be like a break to the development of like this kind of market. Otherwise, we wouldn't be fulfilling our mandate. Of course, we could not for free, but I think the interesting comment that I can make is that it's not a single organization discussion on if we can apply best, lower, more aggressive pricing. That of course is happening. We don't have the same pricing worldwide, and I think that no organization has it. Just think about the Economist Big Mac Index with like the different prices, right? But what I think is useful to discuss now, to bring up on the table, it's like the idea that it depends how the system is set. In the previous intervention, it was mentioned a lot Hungary, where the central bank is actually promoting and helping issuers, local issuers, to come to the market with this like kind of instrument. Another very relevant example, Japan. Japan, which is not like the region I'm mostly working with, but they have like a incredible, I would say, government schemes where they take on their shoulders a sizable part of the financial burden for the issuer to come. So, and this is not to say that the government or the central bank should do the first move, but when a system is set up in a certain way, there is always like this interdependency, because then the banks, they will promote more actively the ancillary services side to the sustainability issuance. The issuer and the investor relation people, the sustainability people, the treasurer of the company, they will have a point in their agenda about, okay, what are we doing on sustainability issuance? Of course, second party opinion providers will be there because it will be like commercially interesting. So it's not a question about if second party opinion providers apply a different pricing strategy. This for me is a no-brainer, but every little organization, every market player should do is small steps, because this is a systemic thing. If like we could apply the lower prices ever, but if the investor, they don't have like a here for sustainability investing in that market, if the banks are not helping and you're just like waiting for a far distance financial institution to come rescue you, this is not going to happen. So everyone should play its part, and we are playing already, as the Ameriabank case demonstrate already our part with like a different pricing strategy.
Thank you. That's excellent news, and also take away that working together locally in the market is important. And I think we'll also hear a bit more about that tomorrow. Now, are there any questions from the floor? I accept physical hands and virtual hands. Or people just shouting out is okay too, because sometimes I miss it.
I promise it won't be long, guys.
From the countries, maybe some question? This is a unique opportunity to make contact with Enrico and, you know, catch him now and then for later on. I think you're really, Enrico, unfortunately, the victim of the before lunch slot. I mean, for me,
no problem at all.
Really very interesting. As I said before, I'm quite a newbie to this whole green bond business, hence no jokes about it. And I really learned a lot from all of you, also from your very interactive and lively presentation. I can see you really like what you're doing. I think this is a good starting point, and I'm suspecting that people, even though they might not be speaking up now, they might be coming back to you afterwards to see what can be done in their specific case in the different countries. So thank you again very much for being with us today. And before I close the session, I have officially 3 minutes still left. I'm quite good in timekeeping, but just by coincidence, I think. First of all, to say that we will start again tomorrow at 10 o'clock, but I also understand Christoph, who is the master of ceremony, I'm just going to say now, has a few words to say as well. Christoph, go ahead.
No, thank you very much, Michaela. And on behalf of the OECD, I would also like to join all the speakers, yourself for moderating, and all the speakers for really excellent presentations, very emotionally and intellectually charged discussion. Certainly, there have been questions about the possibility of having this the seminar available in video format. We will work on it. We'll see, because I really found this interesting, and they're not easy topics. So some of those may need a bit of more even digestion and analysis of the presentations. We'll do our best to provide this the recording to the participants, who can then pass on to their colleagues who may have not been able to participate. So from this perspective, yes, we will. And indeed, tomorrow we start at 10 o'clock Paris, Brussels times, which will be there'll be 11 o'clock in Moldova and Ukraine. There'll be 12 o'clock in the Caucasus, and then it'll be at, I think, 2 o'clock, sorry, 12 o'clock in the Caucasus and 2 o'clock in Kazakhstan. So 1 hour, 2 hour, and 4 hour difference between the different regions. So please join. We will have not less exciting agenda for tomorrow, which we will, and not less exciting speakers. We'll hear from the perspectives of governments and regulators from Georgia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and also experience from Hungary that already Enrico mentioned, just mentioned now. And very important, very interesting session about the support from IFIs and the European Union institutions, as well as OECD. And there were questions in the chat today about this, and definitely we will be answering those questions tomorrow. And then we will conclude, we plan to conclude before 12:30. So I would like, again, thank very much everyone for the participation, in particular Nelly for preparing all the meeting, put this all together. She will actually be chairing, moderating and chairing tomorrow's meeting. So thanks, Michaela, for great work and keeping this on time today. And last but not least, I would also like to thank our interpreter, Natalia, who has been doing a great job as usual. Back to you, Michaela.
Thanks a lot, Christoph. Indeed, I also wanted to thank Natalia, because I know I'm not the slowest speaker, and some other speakers were also pretty engaged and fast in how they were talking. So, wow, you really have deserved your lunch break now, Natalia. Thank you very much for colleagues from the OECD for organizing this really exciting meeting, and I'm not exaggerating here. And thank you very much again for all the speakers. This was really, yeah, exciting and excellent. And I think also very stimulating. So we've consumed, just by sitting here and thinking, a lot of energy, and are ready for lunch. Now, well, for the people where it's lunch hour, for some people, Colette, I think it's more like breakfast time for you now. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.